Welcome to the High Impact Man podcast. High impact men from across the nation sharing their stories of inspiration, encouragement, and hope.
Gosh, seek transformational relationships.
What you're hearing from the culture is not right.
Pick up the six, you know what I mean? But you never know who your six sometimes is.
Stop being less.
To help others become the virtuous leaders they are called to be and that our nation desperately needs.
And blast off. Here we go with another episode of the High Impact Man podcast. Today, we're going to get jiggy with it. Yeah, that's right. We're going to get jiggy with it because our guest today is a friend of ours, Adam Zakarian. His F3 name is Gigawatt, although he will try to correct me and tell me it's Gigawatt, but nobody told Dr. Brown that, so it is Jigawatt to me. I call him Jiggy. And I'm here as always with Dial Up. So my name is Evan Gorky. I'm known as DFib to the F3 guys. Troy Klinger, known as Dial Up. You know us, you love us. And well, at least I hope you do. And we have, as I said, Adam Zakarian. He's a member of the F3 Susquehanna Valley PACs, one of our guys. In fact, we just did a beatdown this morning together. And it was a Horsepower Friday for us. So we use coupons usually on Horsepower Friday to pretend that we're lifting weights and stuff and get some muscular endurance going. Terrible music today by Aquaman. I know he listens to the podcast, so we asked for
there was one song that was like 12 minutes long, I think.
Yeah, Disco Inferno, right? Disco Inferno for like 12 minutes.
Extended version.
Extended version of Disco Inferno. Yeah, we were burning. So anyway, Aquaman, we love you, but we're going to criticize the music. At F3 Susquehanna Valley, I instituted a thing called feedback for the queue. So when we're done with a workout, the queue is supposed to ask for feedback. So give me a sort of after-action report on how we did as a queue. And so that's the only negative for today for Aquaman. And he's queued 3 times this week. It's Aquaman's, it's the Aquaman week for whatever reason. But
let's be honest. Let's be honest here. Hold on. Unless it's 80s rock or 70s rock, you're never going to like the music.
I do have a disco playlist, so I'm okay with the disco. I also have
you do a disco every once in a while.
I also have a Motown playlist, which is actually pretty good music if you ever, try to bring up a Motown playlist. But yes, you're right. Anything after 1990 is. Although I do like some of how about Disturbed rendition of Hello Darkness, My Old Friend. That's really cool.
Yeah, but not a great exercise song.
No, you can't exercise to that. Yeah. So anyway, we were working out this morning, and now here we are, showered, coiffed, looking good, makeup on, and we're ready to roll.
Yeah,
I did.
I didn't.
You didn't shower for our podcast? All right.
No, I work remote, man. I can come home, slap a hat on, I'm ready to roll.
There he goes.
I'm gonna run. I'm gonna run again later. I'm gonna run with my wife later. So
no sense wasting the shower.
No sense showering right now. Save water.
Yeah. Jiggy, did you shower? You showered, right?
I did.
All right.
Yep. I was kind of wet from that workout. I needed to change, and I'm taking a shower.
Yeah, the ground was a little wet. We got a little cold rain on us up here in the land of the ice and snow. Although it's getting warmer, so we're looking forward to shorts weather, which is just we're pretty much there, right? You wearing shorts to Trailblazer tomorrow, Dial Up? Oh, you're not coming to Trailblazer tomorrow. You're running a 16-miler on your own. Are you running in shorts now?
I did one day this week.
Yeah.
But
all right.
Just once. Shorts
weather is about 40, right? It's 40 degrees and above. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Thursday, I should have wore shorts in the morning. I was a little overheated, but I don't know what the weather's calling for tomorrow.
Yeah, Dial Up. He gets overheated. He's a sweater, man. He sweats.
I'm a heavy sweater. Hot-blooded, check and see.
And he doesn't shower, so figure that one out. All right, so the 2 hygienic guys and the 1 non-hygienic guy are coming to you here live from Danville, Pennsylvania. We usually play a little game called Guess How Our Guest Got His Name, but we know because we named him. So we're just going to say, Jiggy, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for being here and sharing your time with us this morning.
Glad to be here.
We are going to, the first thing I think we'll have you do is tell us your F3 story. Tell us who EH'd you, how long you've been doing it, and how you got your name. Tell the folks how you got your name.
Okay, so the EH was actually you. You don't probably remember it, but I was in for an appointment at the hospital, and you mentioned it to me, And at the time, I was like, well, okay, that's cool. And I didn't take you up on it. And then I started going to like a CrossFit thing because I knew I needed to get in better shape. And this was right before COVID. And then I got COVID at that gym. I'm like 99% sure. So after I got over it, I said, man, and they worked out inside and outside, but more inside. And I said, man, I just don't like working out inside. I'd rather be outside breathing fresh air. So I said, and I think I saw something on Facebook, maybe from, one of you guys. And I said, I'm going to show up. So that's what did it. So you mentioned it to me. I wouldn't call it was a EH, but it was definitely hey, you put it out there and you get the credit.
All right. I'll take it.
Yeah.
All right. So did you start in 2020 with us?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, it had to have been because it was right when, no, it was I think it was the year that COVID started. So
that was 20, right?
That following December. Yeah, I think it was 21.
All right.
Because it started 19 into 20, right? And then I think it was at the end of 20, they were going back in the gym. It wasn't like COVID had just came about at that point. It had been around for a little bit. I think 21.
Yeah, we planted the shovel flag in May of 2020. So you weren't too long after our shovel plant that you joined us.
Yeah, February is when I started. So it was probably that following year. Yep.
Cool. So what how'd you tell everybody how you got your name?
Well, I mentioned I worked at the power plant, and you guys just jumped on that with Gigawatt from Back to the Future reference, and I forget how many gigawatts he says, but
4.21
whatever
gigawatts. Yeah.
Yeah,
he says Jigawatt. So
his name was pretty quick, if I remember correctly. It didn't take us long to arrive at Gigawatt.
Yeah, and so when you say
the average takes you guys, it takes us about 7 seconds. So mine might have been like 4.5 seconds.
So the power plant you're referring to is actually a nuclear power plant in Berwick, Pennsylvania.
That's where I spend most of my time up that way, but I've worked at the coal plant here in Washingtonville and up there and different places. But yeah, our company owns both of those.
He's all about power, baby.
Yeah.
All right. We'll have you. We'll talk a little bit more about F3 a little bit later in the episode. So now you get to tell your story. So tell us what was life like growing up for you, for a little Gigawatt? Maybe you were just what's lower than a gigawatt?
Milliwatt?
Yeah, you go down to a megawatt, and then you go down to a kilowatt, and then you go down to a watt. So maybe I was a little watt.
Yeah, how was life for a little watt?
A whatnot.
Wait, we should have named on time. We should have named on time megawatt instead of on time.
Yeah.
So yeah, as a kid, I grew up in a typical suburban outside of Philadelphia. Norristown was my hometown, and Dad and Mom were a little older as parents. They met in their mid-30s, and my mom actually didn't have me till she was 42, which at that time was kind of older for a woman. So my brother was about 5.5 years older than me, and then my mom had a stillborn in between us. And then they still tried again, and when she was 42, and my dad was like a year and a half younger than her. So but yeah, typical growing up back then, safe neighborhood, would be gone all day, either in your friends' backyards, building forts out in the woods, playing street hockey, yelling car and having to move everything off to the side.
Right.
We played a lot of street hockey. And yeah, it was good. My dad was an engineer, electrical engineer. He worked for UNIVAC or Unisys. And Mom was like stay-at-home mom, but she was a piano teacher too. So she had students almost every day in the afternoon. She was teaching in the house. So we always had to be quiet, walking around.
Now your dad was Armenian. Did he come from Armenia? Was he first generation from Armenia?
So he's first generation born here. So the story on my dad's side is, both of his parents were genocide survivors. So they both had families. And during the genocide, when the Turkish people killed 1.5 million Armenians in 1915, my grandmother, for example, she saw her two boys killed in front of her. And then they took her husband away, and she never saw him again. And then she was taken into essentially like human trafficking, like slavery. She was made to become part of like a concubine in a Turkish Islamic home, and Armenians are Christian. So it was like, it was ethnic cleansing. It was, religious cleansing. But this is and was the homeland of the Armenian people since, way back. And Armenia was actually the first Christian nation. Armenia became Christian in, I think it was 301 AD, before the Roman Empire became a Christian empire. A long history of Christianity, but surrounded by Islamic peoples. So, my grandmother eventually escaped. She came to the United States through the Red Cross. This was the first overseas Red Cross mission, was Armenia. She came across, she, went through a lot of trauma, obviously, and came to Philadelphia. And my grandfather, he was actually in the United States when the genocide happened. He was trying to make money to kind of bring back to Armenia or bring his family to the United States when the genocide happened. So his family was killed, and he wasn't even there to protect or try to help them. So they met in the church in Philadelphia, the Armenian church in Philadelphia. Eventually, connections of the immigrants from our country, and they started another family. And they lived in West Philadelphia, very poor. My grandfather was a tailor, and they had my dad and his 3 sisters, and against all odds, they made it. None of us really knew how old my grandfather was, especially. I never met him. It was like, he was old, he was starting his second family, and my grandmother too. The amazing thing is my dad and his 3 sisters all went on to be successful. 2 of his sisters went to the University of Pennsylvania, all with advanced degrees. He went to Drexel and Carnegie Mellon to get his engineering degrees, and they grew up the poorest of the poor in Philadelphia in the Depression years, and post-war period. So, yeah, they're survivors. That's, something I tell my kids is, we're here today because some people really fought hard to survive before us.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. Kind of heartbreaking, but unfortunately, that's what happens in the world. But what a testimony to what you can do and what you can achieve if you just work hard and persevere, right? And yeah, there's still the opportunity for the American dream. I like hearing that kind of thing, not because of the genocide and stuff, obviously, but because there's so much negativity right now in our country, all this divisiveness, politically and all this other stuff, and yet most of us in America still have it really, really good. I mean, how many people have a story like that? But if you just put your head down, work hard, persevere, and obviously, everybody has different God-given talents. But what a story! What an inspirational story to see that we could get a guy like you 2 generations later because of what your grandparents endured, and they kept the right kind of attitude and the right mindset, and then just, we're gonna make it, man. We're gonna make it here in America. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, the amazing thing there is, like you said, two generations, right? Just
Right.
2 generations removed from that. Like,
That's
what
right.
a different life.
And how quickly we forget. I mean, like, United States, we didn't learn about the Armenian genocide much in our growing up in our
Right.
social study and history classes
I
because,
don't think I heard anything about it. Yeah.
well, the U.S. had this stance where they wanted to be friendly with Turkey, because during the Cold War, the Straits of Dardanelles, I think it is, that goes into the Black Sea, that's controlled by Turkey, and that's a
Yeah.
major choke point for the Russian Navy, or the USSR and their Navy.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it was always downplayed, and eventually, finally, and all these other countries in the world acknowledged the genocide officially. Finally, the United States did. I think it was about less than 10 years ago. It kept coming up as a resolution in Congress and Senate, like to say, hey, we recognize this happened, and it would a lot of times it wouldn't pass because they didn't want to send that message. And then finally, I can't remember if it was under Trump, his first term, but it was around that time period that we said, you know what, we acknowledge it. It happened. Whatever, Turkey, if you don't like us now because we're acknowledging it, we're sorry, but we're acknowledging it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Incredible, man. And your mom, what was her background?
So mom was German. So her mother came over from Germany around that same time, like maybe in the 1920s, as a 16-year-old by herself.
Wow.
Came over to, things weren't good in Germany, right? In that time, you think about it. It's
Yeah.
after
Post World War
War
One. Yeah.
Yeah, before World War II, it wasn't
Mm.
good. And this is
Yeah.
one of the reasons, Hitler came into power, because, he pulled this nationalist card.
Yeah.
But yeah, she came over by herself. She started working as a maid, and then a cook. And she was in Philadelphia. She was working for I don't know if you guys remember Kinney Shoes.
Yeah. I do remember that.
Kinney
Yeah.
Shoes, yeah. So that family, she worked for that family in their mansion or whatever for many years. Met my grandfather, but now I believe he was born in the U.S., but his parents were both from Germany also. So mom's side all German, dad's side, all Armenian. But they both Philadelphia, grew up in she grew up more in like that fish town, more like going towards North Philly a little bit, whereas he was like a West Philly guy.
Mm.
Yeah, city
All right.
people. They grew up city
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
West Philadelphia, born and
Born
raised.
and raised. Yeah.
That's right. You know it. They were.
Yeah. The Fresh Prince came from a poor area, huh?
Yeah,
Well,
and they
that's
I know my dad and his sisters, they would talk about how for years, like, when they were kids, all they had money to buy was the very basics for food,
right.
potatoes, things like that. And, a lot of immigrant families in the United States in that time.
Yeah. I can't remember much about my maternal grandfather's background. I know he was English. I think more specifically Welsh, but my maternal grandmother was first generation American. Her parents came from Ireland, and my paternal grandmother she was first generation American. Her mother came from Poland. My grandmother spoke Polish before she spoke English, but they didn't have a lot, right? I mean, immigrants came over here. They didn't have a lot. That's one of the reasons why they came here, in hopes of not so much for them, but making a better life for their family and future generations. What a sacrifice! I mean, that's so brave of your grandmother, 16 years old, coming over here by herself. I mean, that's incredible, right? A 16-year-old girl
I know.
leaving
Coming
Europe to come
across
to
on a
America
boat.
in the 20s. Yeah,
Yeah. I
just
don't
incredible.
know, I don't know if we know like how bad it was for her in Germany and like what she was escaping, or if it was just
Yeah,
like, hey, there's nothing for you here, so you might as well go, kind of thing.
right.
I don't know.
Well, after World War One, the French and the English, I think mostly the French, were so mad at Germany that they really put the clamps on them economically after World War One. And yeah, so Germany wasn't a very prosperous nation at that point, as you said, which fermented the ground for Hitler to come up and kind of restore pride in Germany and all that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, interesting history, man.
speaking of Hitler, and tying it to the Armenian genocide, so Hitler's quoted as saying, if the Turks could do it to the Armenians, we can do it to the Jews.
Wow, there you go.
So he was very aware of this was the groundwork was laid like, and he saw that they got away with it essentially,
Right.
without too much retribution internationally. And so he's
Right.
like, hey, let's do it. And so
Yeah.
this is why genocide and Holocaust recognition is so important to see it when
Yeah.
it's brewing. Yeah.
Good point, man. It's sort of like that just reminds me of, Russia invading Ukraine. Well, they did it after our withdrawal from Afghanistan and how we just totally abandoned everybody and, kind of screwed that up. And they're like, hey, United States is pulling out. We're going to go move in. Who knows if that was a reason, but I kind of suspect it might be. Everyone's always watching. And in Armenia, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the longest continuous Christian community.
That's correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Yeah,
they've been in the crosshairs of the Muslims for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the map right now, I mean, Armenia is like this V. To the north of it is Georgia, which is a Christian nation, and then Russia above them. But to their left is Turkey, Islamic. To the right is Azerbaijan, which is a Turkish nation and Islamic. And then below them is Iran. And actually, they get along best with the folks from Iran. And it's because the Iranians like to come into Armenia, we'll say to party, because they can't party in Iran, so they like to come up and like have a good time. It's like where they go to vacation almost, and and they don't dislike the Armenians like Turkish people dislike the Armenians. So it's just we went there in 2016. It's a beautiful country. They got everything. Yeah. We actually went to visit a Young Life camp that they were building there, and then we stayed there for about 10 days. But it's got everything from high mountains down to desert plains, and what used to be in Armenia before it all got carved up was Mount Ararat, where Noah's Ark landed.
Yes,
and
yes.
From the capital of Armenia, Yerevan, I mean Mount Ararat is right, like you see it. It's not far in the distance, but it's over the border into Turkey. So it's a beautiful mountain.
Dial up. I'm thinking road trip, man. We could plant a shovel flag over in Armenia.
Yeah,
they would love it. They would love it.
Yeah. We got to start F3 in Armenia, baby.
Go look well, I guess we couldn't go look in the Ark. Look for the Ark, right? If it's in Iran.
Yeah, or it's in Turkey. Yeah, it's a closed border. You'd have to fly into Istanbul. Like you can't fly from Armenia into like Istanbul. Like the way we went back in 2016, we flew through Kiev, Ukraine. Like so, we flew from JFK to Kiev, and then to Yerevan into Armenia. And nowadays with Kiev being questionable, you can't fly through Istanbul. You can't fly through Israel. Well, you can, but that's dicey too. So it's like, how do you get there? I don't know if it's Dubai or what, but it's tough to get there.
I hear you. All right. Well, we'll figure out a way. Come on, man.
Yeah.
We could do this. Plant a shovel flag in Armenia. All right. So you played street hockey. Did you play, I think you wrestled a little bit in high school, right? And then you went into a sport not too many people play.
That's right. Yeah, I wrestled from the time I was this little guy. My dad got my brother and I going to the wrestling room. I was real young, like 6, and my brother was probably 9 or 10, and we wrestled, and then I dabbled in some other stuff growing up, swimming and soccer, baseball, that kind of stuff, but always came back to wrestling. And then I got to senior or freshman year in high school, and they needed a 112-pounder, and I was weighing like 120. I was already a skinny toothpick kid.
Yeah.
And they were like, "We need you to suck weight."
Were you tall then as well, like you are now?
I wasn't this tall, but I was growing, and I was very thin. I was skinny.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right. So I sucked weight, and I just got the crap beaten out of me by all these little seniors on the varsity. So, and then I came back my sophomore year and I broke my thumb right in the beginning of the season. So I couldn't wrestle. And then we started, that year at my high school we had a pretty, poor kind of, population but we had a brand new high school, and we had a nice swimming pool. And they talked my swim coach into starting a water polo program. The local water polo clubs was like, hey, you have this nice pool. Can we start a team here? So he did. And I was like, he asked me, he knew I swam. He knew I liked the water. So I started playing water polo as a junior in high school. And then, loved it. I was a goalie, went on to play in college, and it was great sport for me.
Yeah, we got to talk about water polo a little bit. This is fascinating to me.
Yeah.
So tell everybody, how tall are you right now?
I'm 6'4".
6'4", and how much do you weigh?
About 205. Yeah.
205. All right, so you're 3.5 inches taller than me and 10 pounds lighter than me. That's not fair. Gigawatt's he's pretty fit, guys. I could tell you, the guy can't run anymore, and he's got a bad shoulder, but he's pretty fit.
He's got that carnivore diet going thing.
Yeah, he doesn't eat much carbs, and he mountain bikes and swims and does F3. Yeah, he's pretty fit. But anyway, water polos. You have to tread water the entire time? Like you can't stand up in there, right?
Right. So in a real water polo pool, it's deep. It's deep the entire way. You know, when I was in high school, occasionally we would play at pools that didn't have deep. So like on the shallow end, you had to pretend like you were treading water, and you weren't allowed to stand up unless you're the goalie. The goalie could stand in the deep shallow pool, but they made the net a lot bigger because you're standing. But typically, yeah, in real situations, it's deep, and as a goalie, you just tread the whole time. I mean, technically, when they're down at the other end and there's no threat at all, you can like hang on the net, right?
Right. Yeah.
But you get so used to. I mean, we used to do drills as goalies where you have a jug of water and you'd hold it over your head and you would do laps. You would tread doing laps up and down the pool, just with your legs, doing the egg beater kick, they called it. So, but then the other guys are swimming the whole time. I mean, they're swimming and treading. So I think the goalie had it, aside from somebody winging a ball at your face, I think the goalie had it the easiest from a fitness standpoint.
Did you play goalie or keeper right off the bat because of like your wingspan and size? Yes, you were like good fit for you.
Yeah, and I was a good swimmer, but I wasn't like a great swimmer. And so that, it was like you want your fastest guys out there. I had a decent arm, but the goalie was my sweet spot.
That's the kind of thing where everyone's standing in line and say, who wants to be goalie? Take a step forward, and everybody took a step back, and you were standing there, right? Yeah,
because when they throw that ball, and it's pretty hard, it's not padded or anything. Like your face is part of what's protecting the goal.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
You throw your arms up and you die. So you got to be willing to take it.
Well, that explains why you look the way you look. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
He's a handsome fella.
Yeah.
So you got to play the skips too. I can imagine that's like different. The ball skipping off the water.
Right. You got to time stuff. The other thing is, they pump fake you. So like, as a goalie, you come up out of the water and you can only hang for so long. So when they pump fake you, if your defenders aren't all over them, you're starting to go back under, and then you try to throw an arm up if you can. But yeah, great sport. We Villanova, when I played for Villanova, we were in a league that played like, we played the Army, Navy, Fordham, Boston College, a lot of schools on the East Coast. It was just weird because not every, East Coast water polo is not real strong. In fact, when you get to like the NCAA championships, only one East Coast team makes it to the tournament. The rest are almost all from California.
Wow. So was that considered Division I?
Yeah, that was at the time. It was a Division I varsity team. I walked on, but we had scholarship athletes. That all changed when Title IX happened in the late 90s, and they had to, shut down some men's sports and create women's sports for equity. So like at my school, for example, they shut down water polo, boxing, crew, and they actually created women's varsity water polo, and they made the men's team a club team, which was a shame.
Is it still that way?
It's still that way. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, let's start a campaign. Let's go. Bring back the water polo team, Villanova. Come on.
Yeah, it was hard to see that happen, but I understand women's sports need, equal funding and all, but it was a shame to sacrifice some for the others.
Yeah, gotcha. Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually, Title IX, I think Title IX was good. I'm glad that they gave women the opportunity to have at least equal resources in competing and playing in sports. So that's good.
That's what it came down
Um,
to. It was like how many
yeah,
scholarships can the school afford, or how many
right,
sports can they support on the varsity level?
right. Yeah, I don't understand though, because how much could it cost for water polo? Right? You get a couple balls, you get a couple nets. You already have those, so then
Pool
everybody buys
time is
shorts.
pool time is expensive.
Yeah, full-time
The
coaches.
pool's there whether you're swimming in it or not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
scholarships. I think that was the main thing. I mean, we had probably a half dozen of our guys were either full or partial scholarship.
So if you don't have the money for scholarships, you can't compete well. I
I
guess that would
guess.
be yeah.
Yeah,
Very interesting.
yeah.
All right. Dial up. You got any water polo questions?
Well, as a goalie, he probably didn't have this issue, but like it's true that like you have to wear two swimsuits, right? Because commonly one gets ripped off. Is that accurate?
I mean, yeah, that's some of the guys who do that. Yeah, it gets rough out there. I know you guys probably seen in the Olympics the underwater cams and
Oh, it's a battle under the water, man.
all the battling. And you think about like in basketball, the refs trying to see what's going on. Like it's the same thing. It's a similar like water polo is kind of like I think about like basketball and soccer in the water, something like that. And
Yeah.
the ref, he tries to see what's happening. The whistle's blowing a lot. There's a lot of fouls, and so a lot of play stoppage because of what he observes. But there's a lot of stuff, especially when the ball's going the other way, and there's a lot of kicking and pushing and stuff like that. So again, the goalie was exempt from a lot of that. You're pretty protected. If somebody does that to a goalie, there's usually a fight. So
Fighting in the pool, that should be interesting.
yeah, yeah.
When you go in the I've never been able to tell for sure because they don't focus on them during like a telecast, like during the Olympics or anything. But if you get a penalty and they go into the penalty box, do you still have to tread water in the penalty box?
No, you can hang on the edge. Yeah.
Oh, so you get a reward actually when you get a
Yeah, you
penalty.
get a break. Right.
Okay, interesting. All right, that doesn't seem fair.
All
but
right, man. Yeah. So you were Navy ROTC in college, is that right?
Yep, Navy ROTC. So I initially went to Virginia Tech for my first semester, and if you do ROTC at Virginia Tech, you have to be in the Corps of Cadets, and the Corps of Cadets is like an enclave on the campus where you basically it's military dorms, it's military chow hall, you wear a uniform every day, and it's not even your ROTC uniform, it's a Corps Cadets uniform, and then you go to class with kids in flip flops and shorts, the rest of the student population, you're there and you're pressed you're spending all your time pressing your uniform and shining your shoes and shining your brass. And so I did that, and I don't think I really realized what I was getting into. And it wasn't there's a lot of tradition there. The Corps Cadets has a lot of tradition. A lot of it's good, but when I went there were some issues with the culture and hazing and things like that. We actually had one of our classmates take their life by suicide, which was really rough. There was just this general some issues with the leadership at the time, so it wasn't for me. I decided, you know what, I don't want to spend my college career doing this. It also, if you were like an engineer, the Corps was so demanding. You usually ended up needing like 5 years or more to finish your degree there instead of 4. And I had a scholarship for 4. So I was like, I don't know if I want to, pay extra money just, to be part of that. So I transferred to Villanova. They had a ROTC, Navy ROTC. Not many schools have Navy ROTC. Like a lot of schools have Army and Air Force, but Navy's pretty like spotty. So I had to pick a school near home because I was a freshman transfer. I wasn't going to get housing. And my dad, bless him for figuring it all out, get me established at Villanova. It was either like Villanova, Drexel, or Penn, or were my choices, I think. So I chose Villanova, which I would have never chosen coming out of high school. Never was even on my radar. but glad I landed there. It was great. Took a little while to, since I came in as a second semester freshman, I had to, meet everybody. I didn't get through that freshman experience with everybody, but, pretty quickly through ROTC and water polo, I got to meet some good friends, and it was a great experience there. Yeah.
Now, I'm assuming you picked the Navy because you were a swimmer.
I picked the Navy because my brother did the same thing. He did Navy ROTC, and he's about 5.5 years ahead of me. So I just saw like, hey, he figured out a way to pay for college and not have to rely on our folks for this. So
Yeah.
Seems like a good idea. And the other reason was, if you did Army or Air Force ROTC, there was a good chance you would get a reserve commission instead of an active duty commission. And I wanted to go active duty. So if you go Navy Marines, you were guaranteed an active duty commission coming out.
So you wanted to serve. You didn't want to be in the reserves when you came out. Gotcha.
Yeah, I figured I wanted to serve coming out.
I mean, both serve. I shouldn't say it that way, but
Yeah.
you wanted to go active
I
duty.
wanted to go active duty. Yeah.
So what is Navy ROTC training like at Villanova? Like, are you in the water at all?
So it's much different than like what I described in the Corps Cadets. Typical Navy ROTC is 1 day a week you wear your uniform to school. You have drill one day a week. You always have a 3-credit class throughout your entire time there, and you're learning, different things about naval history, naval operations, naval engineering, all that kind of stuff to prep you for when you actually, go in. So you're learning kind of like the basics, and you have one of the halls on campus. The one floor was dedicated to ROTC, so that's where the officers that were managing the ROTC guys were. And you'd have some functions and things like that, but it was pretty low key. I mean, it took up some time. Again, added 3-credit class onto everything else. Like there were times I typically had 19 to 21 credits that I was taking.
I was going to ask, that class that you said you had to take, was that in addition then to your regular credits for your major?
Yeah.
So you always had an extra 3-credit class every semester beyond what a normal person would take.
Yeah. And they weren't demanding. I would say they were some of the easier classes I had, but they were still like time.
Yeah.
As a class, you had to sit through this
3 extra hours of class, right?
Yeah. And you had to do some studying and stuff. So yeah.
So you didn't do physical training very much as far as Navy ROTC?
We did. So some of it was required and some of it was optional. So like, if you had required a certain amount of, workouts you'd have to do, and then you had to pass, the physical fitness tests. I think each semester or twice a semester, maybe you had to pass the Navy physical fitness test. But then,
which is what, like 20 push-ups in 5 minutes or something like that?
Yeah.
Navy, I mean.
Yeah, I forget. It was like, it was doable for most people who were generally, in decent shape. You didn't have to work at it too hard, but you couldn't just be like a couch potato either. You had to be a certain level of fitness. They always said like, Marines had the toughest standard, then Army, and then Navy, and then the Air Force standard was always a joke, like what you were saying.
Right.
It was really easy. But then you could always sign up, like the Marines would have extra workouts, kind of like, think about like F3 stuff, like every morning they'd have something going on because, physical fitness for them was more of a focus than for most of the Navy guys.
Yeah. Did they, I listened to a number of podcasts. There were some guys, a lot of Navy SEALs on these podcasts, and a few of them were ROTC, and did they like say who wants to try to be a SEAL or whatever, because then they had extra training and things like that. Was that ever on your radar?
So, being an engineer, the Navy likes to recruit engineering students and science, math students typically towards nuclear engineering school and become Navy nukes. So my brother, being 5 years ahead of me, he went to Drexel. He was a chem engineer he ended up with a 3.8 grade point average, very smart. and he was in Navy nuke school when I was trying to make my selection, like what do I want to do in the Navy, and he's telling me how hard it is. He's like, this is like jamming all 4 years of engineering school into 18 months, and he's like, it's a pain. Like it's like I'm going to college all over again. And so I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, I don't want, and I was in the middle of engineering school at the time. I'm like, I don't want to do that. So I was like, what else is there? And I, as you know, I love being in the water. I thought about seals, but that's just not my mentality. I mean, I love what those guys do and respect everything, but I kind of always said, like, I'm a lover, not a fighter. So the idea of being a trained assassin, like, just wasn't appealing to me. I don't think I could deal with that. So it's like, what else can I do? So in the water, so diving and salvage. So was the track I went down, and it was a very small selection, kind of like SEALs. Like you had to really compete for these slots, and it was still a lot of physical, very, very physically demanding. I'm not going to say like the SEALs. It's not that level, but it is. You have to be very comfortable in the water. You have to be in very good shape to get through that program. And I got, so that made me get good grade and push harder for good grades, make sure I was doing everything right because there was only a few slots available for it every year. And so that's where I ended up going.
Did you wear the heavy suits with the big bell helmets? What's the movie with Cuba Gooding Jr.? Cuba Gooding Jr.
Yeah, Gooding Jr. Yeah, in fact.
I can't remember the name.
Men of Honor, yeah.
That's it, Men of Honor, thank you.
Yeah, in fact, that guy, so that ship did you see that movie, DFib?
I saw a little clips of it here and there, but I never watched the whole thing all at once.
It's a great movie. It's him and Robert De Niro. Anyway, the story is about the main character in that is, I think it was Robert Bashir, Master Diver Bashir, but he was the first African American to become a diver, Navy diver, but then he lost his leg in a shipboard accident, and he came back. He fought back to stay in the Navy with a prosthetic and to maintain being a master diver. So it's an incredible story of resilience. He lost his leg on my first ship I was on, the USS Hoist. That was the ship he lost his leg on, and we decommissioned that ship, and he came to the decommissioning ceremony.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it was really cool meeting him. In fact, my good friend of mine who was in dive school, black guy, he became very good friends with Master Diver Bashir. And then when he got married, he came to his wedding, and we sat at the same table at his wedding with him. So got to know him a little bit. But yeah, quite a guy. But yeah, he lost his leg from the movie, like a line's under tension, and it parts, comes apart real fast. It's like you don't want to be in the way of that. And that just took his leg right off. Yeah.
So, you had the bell helmet on and all that stuff. How deep would you go?
Yeah. So we were trained. So dive school was down Panama City Beach, Florida. We're about, I was down there for almost 8-9 months, in active school for probably 6-7. And you start off with scuba training, and then you learn surface applied, we call it. So that's the hard hat diving you're talking about. Like we weren't using the big brass helmets. Like that stopped back in like the 70s probably. You picture the yellow ones with the flat glass mask. So you'd learn all those techniques. The deepest I ever went was, under pressure, was in a controlled environment, in a simulated environment, was down to like 170 feet. And then actually in the water, I think the deepest I ever went was 120, 125 maybe. So I never dove mixed gas. If I was going to a ship that had mixed gas capabilities, which means instead of breathing oxygen, normal air with nitrogen in it, you're breathing air with helium instead. And then you can go a lot deeper. So if I was going to go to a ship that had that, I would have gotten mixed gas training. And then you can go deeper. You can go 200-300 feet kind of thing.
So how hard was was there a selection process when you were at dive school? Is there an attrition rate?
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty high attrition rate. First, there's like the first part is the boot camp type stuff, right? Like they just put you through the ringer as far as working you out, seeing who drops out physically. So you probably lose, I don't know, 10, 20% at that point. And then you get to the point called pool week. And so for me, I'd never dove scuba before. So I get in, they line you up at this big pool they have, and it's a really deep pool, and they teach you how to breathe a regulator, and you spend about an hour getting used to that, just swimming around, getting used to the regulator, the buoyancy control, and all that kind of stuff. And then they start these things. You can look it up on YouTube. You just like look up Navy dive school, pool week, and they start doing these things called hits. So a guy at snorkels comes down from the surface, and you're crawling along the bottom with your scuba tanks and everything. You're not allowed to look up, and they do something like they'll push you. They'll start off with just pushing you or pull your mask off to see how you react. And if you keep your cool, you do a lap, and then you wait your turn again, you go back, and then they just keep ramping up this intensity throughout the whole week, to the point like at the end they're literally like attacking you. They take your regulator out, they tie it in a knot, they shut your air off, and this whole time like you don't even see them coming. So a lot of times they'll wait till they see bubbles where you exhale, and then they hit you.
Yeah.
And so you just have to, they want to make sure you're going to stay calm under pressure and you're not going to panic. And, that's where you lose a lot of people in that pool week. I almost washed out myself, because one time what they call bolt, I tried to bolt to the surface, and the safety divers jumped on me and stuck a regulator in my mouth, and they took me to the surface. They said, you do that one more time, you're out of here. And that was a turning point for me. I had to really buckle down, and I prayed a lot. I asked God to just help me through that because I worked so hard to get there.
Yeah.
And then, I made it through. So, and then after that, there's other things that people wash out for. Some people get claustrophobic. Like there's some things they do at dive school where they put you in very tight situations. Like you have to swim into a tank underwater that is very, some people just like couldn't handle some of that kind of stuff. But usually after pool week, it was pretty stable, and you knew who your class was going to be, and you knew who was going to make it. So, yeah,
that's pretty cool, man.
it's pretty neat.
There's a guy on this podcast that has a swimming pool that I think we should have a beat down in his yard and swimming pool. We can incorporate some swimming stuff.
Yeah, we had a pool party here one time, but we should to do a beatdown.
Well, we'll have Jiggy queued.
Yeah, I'll think about it. Yeah.
What'd be fun is to do like at the DAC at the community center, do a water polo game.
Oh,
That's kind of fun to do. I know like a lot of times like swim teams will do that as a break thing, like as an easy day. They'll like, okay, today we're just going to play water polo, and it's just kind of a fun thing to do.
We'd have to have about 5 lifeguards on hand because I think some of our guys, I don't know about that. The pool is different, man. That's different. You got guys treading water. Philip, how long do you think you could tread water for?
Oh boy, I have no idea. I don't know. Good cardiovascular system. I think I could do it for quite a while. I have no idea. I've never really tried to just do it to see how long.
When I was a freshman in high school, we had, for gym class, we had one semester in the pool, and we had to tread water. We built up obviously, but we had a test where we had to tread water. I don't know. I mean, Jiggy, is this reasonable that freshmen in high school could tread water for 20 minutes? Because that for some reason that's in my mind that we had to tread water for 20 minutes.
That feels long.
Yeah, it does feel long. Maybe it's less than that.
For a high school kid, maybe 5 minutes was the test. I don't know.
It was more than that. I know it was more than that, but 20 sounds kind of long. But I know that I was pretty good at it. But the thing that happened, well, I don't know if it happened then, but I tried it recently. I started swimming a little bit, but I stopped. But for workouts, the one time I was in the pool, and I thought I'm gonna see how long I could after I did my workout. I think I see how long I could tread water, and my feet started to cramp. So I get like muscle cramps in my feet, which, maybe it's associated with my back issues. But
It's a technique thing. So most
Isn't
people,
there like you kind of bend over kind of and then extend or something like that? Isn't there some technique too that you can use? I
I,
remember reading that
I
once.
that'd be
mean,
called a rocking chair maneuver.
most people just like they're running in the water. That's what they
Yeah, no,
do
you
to
gotta
tread.
Yeah.
do the circle thing.
Yeah,
And
you
it's
want to
just
do
arms kind of back and forth, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
figure eight with the arms,
yeah.
but yeah, I don't. I mean, to me, it just. I feel like I could tread water all day. I don't know if I could at this point, but like to me, it's just like almost like a natural thing, almost like I'm walking in the But I know a lot of it's just technique.
Yeah.
Do they have water
Well,
polo nets? I'm thinking like at the rec, like or at the DAC. We need to try this. Do they have water polo nets there?
They had some water polo going on there. They had a little club team at one point, I think. I think they do maybe. I mean, I haven't been to DAC in years, but back in
yeah.
that one of those closets, yeah, it might
You
be.
have to get it. You have to find how somehow get them to stop the swimming in lanes and stuff like that. I don't think
Yeah.
they would do that. All right. Oh well. All right. So what did you salvage? You're a Navy salvage diver. Like, did you go down and salvage any top secret stuff like a Soviet sub or anything like that? Like, what were you salvaging?
We did some cool stuff. So as a salvage vessel, we were small but mighty. We weren't fast, so we didn't go around with the carrier groups. We just independently were out there waiting for a problem or practicing. And my first ship was the hoist. I met that over in the Mediterranean, and we did some salvage jobs, like pulling things off of, pulling a barge off a reef. One time, we were looking for an F-16 that went down. So we had the side scan sonar capability. We would just do laps and laps looking for stuff that was underwater. And then when you would find it, you would dive on it. In that case, we never found it because we were on our way out. We were on our way home. And then my second ship, it was in Pearl Harbor. We went to San Diego to pick up a helicopter that went off. It had an accident. It didn't land on the aircraft carrier. It sunk. And, this is in the Pacific, which is extremely deep. So we worked with a remote submersible kind of research vessel. Worked with that to go down and grab this helicopter down like 2,000 feet, pull it up, and then we put divers in the water to secure it, and we brought it up with our hoist and put it on our fantail. That was a really cool job. We did jobs like up in Alaska or up in the Arctic Sea, in the Bering Straits. We had to pull up some old you hear about these cables that are underground or underwater, listening cables. We had to pull up some cable. So that was kind of cool. But sometimes it was just like a ship like dropped an anchor, and the chain broke, and like, can you get that anchor for them? Because it's like right in the harbor or something like we would do some maintenance type stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it was like, looking for something maybe more important, like a plane or a helicopter, or never looked for a Russian sub though.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you guys don't do any welding or cutting underwater or anything, do you?
Yeah.
Or do
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't trained to weld. That's a very specialty thing. We did have we he had like two guys on our ship who had that qualification. I did some cutting underwater. But yeah, we, on a ship like mine, we had the contingent that kind of was specialized in diving. We had like 100 people on the ship. There was probably like 15 or 20 that were divers. That was their specialty. And they also had other jobs on the ship too, but they were the diving and salvage team. The rest of the crew like ran the ship. And, we had a recompression chamber too. So like we could dive, and if we couldn't do recompression in the water, we could pull people up and over and throw them into the chamber and, bring them back down to pressure to get the nitrogen out. So we had like a lot of diving medicine training. We had guys who were, specialized in that, but we all had a lot of diving medicine training. So that was like especially, and these ships don't exist anymore, by the way. The Navy basically eventually phased them all out. Now they use contractors. They'll deploy Navy divers on like contract vessels that have these capabilities, but they decided to not, keep doing it. So
Drones now? Do we have any underwater drones that could do work like that?
yeah, so that job that we pulled that sub up with, that was a remote submersible, kind of like a drone, right? Sent it down. It was like this little sub that went down and did all that. But I'm sure that's all advanced. I mean, this is 30 years ago now. God, it's been a while.
How far down do you go till you lose sunlight?
Ooh, it depends on the water.
At nighttime, not far.
Yeah. It depends on the water. Yeah. I mean, like, and then as you lose like that ultraviolet light, you don't see color either, right? So it's weird how that works. But yeah, how murky the water is and all that kind of stuff. So Hawaii, when I was in Hawaii, man, the visibility was incredible out there versus Virginia Beach, whereas the Atlantic and a lot more sediment and stuff in the water.
Yeah, interesting. All right. Well, now you're doing F3. What has F3 done for you?
Boy, F3 has just it filled a gap that I had. I have to say, like, so physically, let's start with the first F. Like, I used to just ride my bike all the time, which was great, but I quickly realized that wasn't enough. I wasn't getting the cross training. I wasn't really. It's amazing how you can think you're in good shape, but you're just in shape to do one thing. So
yeah,
that has been huge, and just the fellowships, getting up with the guys, connecting, knowing that I got this cadre of friends locally that were kind of like-minded. We all like think the same way on a lot of things, like about each other, about our community, about God, about fitness. All these things like are important to us. And if something's important to you, you can usually get a few guys in F3 to join you on it, and lean in. And it's pretty cool. And just knowing that they got your back, and you have their back too, it gives you kind of a sense of purpose, additional sense of purpose, to take care of, people in your concentrica here. And then faith, just reinforces the power of prayer, getting up with guys, being vulnerable, talking about issues you've had, making people feel like, hey, you're not the only one going through that, helping each other through the hard times. It's just been a great, I think, thing for all three of those aspects. And again, for me, it was going into empty nest period here, like kind of like you guys, it was really important because when you have kids and you're super busy and you're running and doing all those things, you maybe not realize how what you're setting yourself up for when they are gone, right? What are you going to do? And to stay active and stay connected. When you were going to your kids' soccer games and all that stuff, you were seeing other people, you were talking, you had that social aspect also, and you were connecting with people on different levels. But so it's been powerful. I think it should be, everywhere. And I think it's getting there.
We agree. Yeah.
Amen, brother. So, who's your favorite Q? No, I'm kidding. You don't have to answer that.
No, the good question is, who's your least favorite Q?
Wow. No,
right?
Let's not do that.
No, usually for a lot of guys, it's like whoever makes it the hardest. It's not that they're necessarily a bad
okay.
Q, right?
So it could be a badge of honor. All right.
I like beach balls Qs because he usually does some kind of game or something.
He always has some type of competition involved.
Yeah.
He's got it tomorrow, but I don't. He shared with me a little bit of what he's got planned, but we'll see what he ends up doing.
Yeah. So we know when Jiggy Qs, we know what we're doing. We're doing legs and core.
Yeah, yeah, lately. That's for sure.
You got some injuries that are keeping you from doing other things.
It
So.
seems like as soon as we put that pull-up bar up, I couldn't use
You
it.
can't use it now.
I'm so excited about it. Like,
Yeah. Now you got a shoulder, right?
yeah, left shoulder. It's getting better. I think I'm in PT now, so taking it more seriously. Trying
Beach
not
ball
All
is
right.
planning on using the pull up bar tomorrow. I
to.
can,
Of course he is. He
We'll
loves
have to
that
do
pull-up
one
bar.
arms then.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
You can do them like me. You jump up and pretend you did a pull-up. Actually, dial up. I think I told you, I got the 4 pull-ups now
nice.
at the gym.
Nice.
But I have to do them with I don't know what you call it, a different grip. I can't use a regular grip because of my elbow. So, but if I do the grip where
Yeah.
your hands face each other, I could do more. So I got up to 4. My New Year's resolution is to be able to do 10. So I'm not even halfway there. I know. I got to lose weight. If I weigh less, I could pull up more. I know that.
That's the trick of pull ups, man.
Yeah, the guys who are really good at it are pretty lean, right? Think of Big
Yeah.
Green and yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't take much weight to make it harder, right? You add 10 pounds. It's like, ooh.
Yep.
When I was in college, we did pull-ups twice a week as part of our back workout at the gym. And when we first started, I could only do about 3 or 4. And then now you back then your buddy would hold your feet and you could do some forced reps. But then I got up to like 10 or 12, but that was hard. It took me probably a year and a half to get there. But anyway, we'll see.
Yeah. Gigawatt,
All right.
I was gonna ask you from an F3 perspective, being in a position of leadership management at your work, has F3 helped you there in some way to be a better leader within your job role?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. It certainly has because we do talk about leadership principles a lot. Um, you know, it totally has helped me think through some scenarios or maybe rethink how I might have handled something when we, go through the Free the Lead or the what's the other book?
Q source.
Q Source. Thank you. They really do like have excellent leadership principles, and just hearing how the different guys in the packs talk about what they would do or what they think is important, like reinforces for me sometimes. Like, okay, I think I handled that right, or maybe I should have done something a little different. So it's excellent for that. Yeah.
Good question. I was going to ask something similar. What we're all about. It's what our mission is supposed to be anyway, right? Invigorating male community leadership. All right. Dial, you got anything else before we ask him?
Yeah, I was going to
questions?
ask him just to share a little bit about his faith and the work and commitment that he does there. I know you're
Yeah.
work in different ways, to, like with some mission work through your church. One of the key ones being the Young Life program. So I just thought maybe we'd give you an opportunity to kind of share the aspect of faith in your life and some of the work that you do there.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, I think part of it's because my church, we don't have right now and over the past dozen years, we haven't had a lot of like activities for adults outside of just normal church stuff. And so I gravitated towards like these kind of ecumenical things, where you've got different groups coming together to do God's work, like Young Life. My kids were, at the right age. Young Life was starting here in Danville. I knew nothing about it, but we got involved, and it's just been a huge blessing. And just again, to see who in our community, like besides the people from your church, as Christians, like all of a sudden you get this vision of all these other people, just like in F3, like, hey, our community is full of people of faith that you would have never known if you stayed in your church bubble. So that was great, and I've kind of phased out of that as the kids have, I still stay involved, but not like I was. And then lately it's been more like the mission type work. So our church is really active in trying to do disaster relief. So wherever we can plug in, whether it's locally, I've been to down to Central America many times, North Carolina, just different trips when I can get away. And unfortunately, we've had some flooding locally here in Pennsylvania too. So done some of that more recently. But I do, I think, not that I'm a great carpenter or anything like that. A lot of times I'm just the guy sweeping up, maybe putting some screws in the wall, doing what I can, learning as I go. But it's that's what it takes. Is you're always busy when you show up to one of those things. So, and then the other thing I've got involved with is an organization called Trace Dias, which is you do men's and women's weekends where you just focus on God, and you get to meet, again, a lot of men and women, but mostly, on the men's weekend, you're just around other guys who, again, are at different points in their faith walk and just trying to strengthen their relationship with God. That's been huge from a diving deep standpoint. A lot of times, we go to church, we read the Bible, we pray, but when you have an intentional kind of thing you're doing, like to plan for a weekend or to be on a weekend where it's entirely focused on your faith, it really allows you to go deep and ask yourself some harder questions. So they've been just big parts of my life and my wife's life too.
Yeah.
That's awesome, brother.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Did you sign up for Fight Club?
I did. I'll be there tonight.
You're going to be there? All right.
Yep.
Yeah. Everybody listening doesn't know what we're talking about, but it's not a specific church, but it's a Christian movement for men called Fight Club. And no, we don't do any fighting, but it's about fighting for your families and things like that. But anyway, it's a 10-week program where you have to do certain things every week, read scripture. You have to, I think, what is it? 3 workouts a week that you have to do. And there's a book we're studying, and they're going to have an accountability partner and certain relational things you have to do every week. And maybe like a specific week, you'd have to like buy your wife flowers or whatever. There's more to it than that, but basically that's what Fight Club is. And our PAX member Salty is running it from our church, First Baptist Church, but it's not a First Baptist Church ministry. It's a Fight Club, it's called. And it's kicked off with a bonfire. It's supposed to be a midnight bonfire, but we're doing it from 10 to 12 because a lot of us are old and we don't want to stay up that late. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I mean, if I get an opportunity to do anymore, I have this craving for wanting to get closer to God and however I can. So if there's an opportunity for me to do it, I know versus, what else am I going to do that's that meaningful, that we waste our time doing a lot of stuff, right? We convince ourselves that we should be watching TV or, we should be watching sports. And I love doing that stuff too. But at the end of the day, those are fleeting things that they pass and they're gone. Right. And so the more meaningful stuff I can do that, invigorates my faith, I'm going to sign up for.
Amen.
I'm gonna try
Amen, brother.
Yeah.
Well, good. Yeah. So that starts tonight for us here in the F3 Susquehanna Valley region. Yeah, it isn't a waste to watch Cobra Kai, though. I finished the last episode of the last season, so I would recommend Cobra Kai. And Reacher season 3, man. I'm up to date on the first 4 episodes, so if anybody's interested, pretty cool. I read all the Reacher books, and Reacher is referred to in Free to Lead, by the way.
It is, yeah.
So you know. All right. Well, thanks for sharing all that, buddy. We're gonna get you out of here with these last 2 questions.
Okay.
Dalip, am I missing anything? Should I hit anything else before?
No, I think we hit everything that was on my radar for him. All
right, Jiggy, do you have anything you want to share? Anything else before we ask you our last 2 questions?
Nope, go for it.
All right, brother. You know the first one. If you were to pick somebody that inspires you, your hero, that kind of thing, who would it be?
Yeah, so I listen to you guys' podcasts. I think I've listened to all.
You could say defib and dial-up. That's okay. That's not where you were going, huh? Okay, all right.
I'll spit my drink out.
You guys are heroes in my book. You sure are. Everybody is a hero in a different way. I look at, that's a good point. Guys in the packs, each guy I look up to for different reasons. They all, and that's what makes it a really cool thing. I was thinking about this, and not that it came naturally to me as picking my hero, but it is my dad. When I think about everything he went through, and everything he did. So my mom was also bipolar, so she struggled just doing life, and my dad had to serve both roles, mom, father and mother a lot of times for us growing up. And, I just think about everything he went through as a child, coming out of poverty, getting through that, going through, going in the Air Force and then coming out and getting advanced degrees in engineering and raising our family and everything he did. And he had such a fun view on life. He loved telling jokes. He was just a joy to be around. Unfortunately, his final year on Earth or 2 years was not great. It was one of those things like I hate to think of him in those final 2 years because that was not him.
Right.
But he would be my hero. Yeah, for sure.
I thought you might pick your dad. That's great. It's a shame everybody doesn't get to pick their dad, right?
Yeah.
So,
all right. Yeah, I mean, what an honor. I mean,
yeah.
And like I said, it didn't come naturally. It's not like me and my dad were best buddies and did all kinds of stuff together, and we didn't see eye to eye on some things, certainly. But I just, as you grow up and get older, you see things a little differently and you appreciate, I think about my mom that way too. I didn't really appreciate my mom, but she was the prayer warrior. I mean, she would sit in her chair and she'd read, and her Bible had comments written all over it, and she was praying for me and my brother's salvation all the time.
Yeah.
And, if it wasn't for her, who knows where I'd be right now. So, I think you get a little older and you look back on your folks and say, wow, they actually did a great job.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good, man. All right. Last question. This is your chance to speak to the men of America. What's your message for the men of America?
I was trying to think how to phrase this, but I think the easiest way to remember it, not that this is very original, but don't go with the flow is my advice.
All right.
The flow is what the world is trying to convince us to do. Is most of it, some of it's good, right? Some of it's great, but a lot of it is a waste of time. A lot of it is going to take you away from the real beauty of what God's got for you, because it's going to distract you. It's going to make you not open to the real amazing things that are out there. And I struggle with this too. I mean, I'm constantly telling myself, don't go with the flow. Go the other direction. I know DFID, you're big about disruption, right? We have to break out of what's comfortable. We got to get away from that. So,
right.
I think of, if you watch that series, The Chosen, their emblem is there's a bunch of fish swimming this way, and there's one fish swimming this way, a different color. Yeah. And that kind of says it all to me. Is just swim against the flow.
Don't go with the flow.
Well said.
That's a catchy.
That could be a shirt.
Don't go with the flow.
Yeah. Do you have any shirt ideas we've created from?
Yeah, we haven't made one shirt though.
I know we haven't made one yet. I like it.
Well, I think the most recent one though.
You should do this segment right here, advice from all these guys from all these podcasts. Put that in a book.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We'd have to go back and listen to all of them, but yeah, that'd be really good. Yeah, the most recent shirt we were going to make came from Boss Hogg. So.
Oh, yeah, I heard that one.
The T-shirt will say, "Don't touch me. Go to F3."
Don't touch me. Forget about it. It's not happening.
Yeah. Go to F3. Yeah, that is.
Now we know why our wives like F3 so much. Why do they like clicks?
Early morning hours,
Yeah. That's all got in a little trouble, I think, for sharing that. It came
I probably got him in more trouble if she hears about this podcast.
Study, they were there, and we talked about it a little bit there.
My problem is I'm at my peak in the morning, and my wife is not. It's.
Yeah.
We're on opposite schedules, man. Yep. What are you going to do?
Same here. I'm the opposite, though. Yeah.
Are you? Yeah.
Groggy.
Yeah. Well, Dial Up, I think, Jiggy, you said Bee Gees is so nice that he could punch you in the face and twist your nipple and you'd still love him or something like that.
Thin crust, yeah. He could kick you
thin crust, sorry.
Yeah, thin crust. Nipples and you still love the guy.
Yeah. Jiggy's the same thing.
Jiggy's about the same, yeah. Jiggy or Jiggy, however you want to call him. You're the one who calls him Jiggy. I think you're the only one. The rest of us is Giggy.
Well, you guys, that's because I'm not going with the flow, Dial Up.
So
I think he'd make an excellent third FQ, by the way, whenever Stinger wants to step down. All right. Well, I don't know if you guys understood this, but when I asked him about being a SEAL and he said he's a lover, not a fighter, he really is just a great heart, and he really loves everyone, and that's what makes him so good about reaching out to people. And in fact, he's leading the charge on helping a guy that was an F3 guy here that moved out to California. He's moving back. He's leading the charge and helping him furnish his new place. And the guy that is just leaving today from California to drive across the country. So anyway, that's the kind of heart he's got. So just another high impact man we've talked to. Dial up.
Yeah, amen to that for sure. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Thanks for having me, guys. Thanks for everything you do. This is great. Keep it up.
I know guys are going to love.
Super encouraging to hear, guys' stories. Everybody's got a story, right? So
everybody's got a story to tell.
And it's all good to share and hear. So thanks.
Yes, absolutely. And I really hope, honestly, I really hope that men will across the country or across the world that listen to this, but can not just be inspired, motivated, encouraged by it, but especially the encouragement part when social media, the news, all that stuff is just trying to tear you apart. It's all vitriol, it's all negative, it's all hate. When the truth is that the vast majority of people out there in our country are really good people trying to do the right thing.
Amen.
Got it. You got it.
All right. Well, God bless you, brother. I guess I will see you and Dial Up tonight at the bonfire.
Yep. See you then.
All right. See you at Fight Club.
See ya.
Peace out.
All right. Recording stopped. We're all good. Give it just a second here, Gigi. I want to make sure everybody uploads.
Okay.
Oh, I thought it stopped. Hold on. I'll have to edit that little part out at the end.
Which program is this? Is this this isn't Zoom, right? Is it Riverside?
No, it's Riverside, yeah.
Okay. It's not just because Dial-Up lives in Riverside?
No.
No.
The recording's not stopping for some reason. What's going on here?
Well, folks, we're still coming at you live from...
Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I would like to thank our guests for joining us and sharing their story of becoming a high-impact man. More information and resources can be found at highimpactman.com. If you like this podcast, please consider following us on our social media pages or email us at him@highimpactman.com. That is him@highimpactman.com. The High Impact Man podcast has a new episode every week, and you can find them on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Google Podcast platforms. Have a great week, everyone.